Welcome back to the Talent Table with Alaina and Christie. We're back with season 2, Alaina. How exciting.
Very exciting, very exciting. Happy to be back, Christy.
Awesome.
Thanks for getting this together.
Yeah, of course. So we're going to talk a little bit about re-entering the workforce after some time away. So I don't know about you, Alaina, but I do have a little bit of a gap on my resume. Do you have one on yours?
So I have been working since I could work. So I don't have any employment gaps. Like I've literally been working since I was like 16 years old. I took some time off here and there just for college, but even in
Yeah.
college, I worked. So I don't have quote unquote employment gaps. But what I do have sometimes is I don't list all of my employment on my resume or even my LinkedIn profile. So you may find gaps in between my education and kind of where quote unquote my career journey started. So from a hiring professional's perspective, or someone looking, it may appear that I have gaps, but no, Christy, I have been working for a long time.
And so I've been working since I was 14. I worked at like a pizza place when I was in high school and played like sports and stuff. But I do have a little bit of a gap. When my first daughter was born, I took like a year off to stay home with her, which was awesome and great. And thankful for that. But I do have that gap on there, and I have had to speak to that from time to time. So just thought it would be good for us to kind of touch on some of that today to help some of the job seekers out there. I think my first rule of thumb is always to be honest. I think that's a good rule to live by. So if you do have a gap like that, I think it's good to list it on your resume, or you have some different options to kind of list maybe more relevant experience and maybe put some of that others at the bottom of your resume. But I do think it's important to kind of list it and be able to speak to it in an interview with a recruiter. What do you think?
So I kind of go back and forth because there's two different thoughts to that. Sometimes, like as far as on a resume, I like to have my resume aligned with the opportunity that I'm working for. So if you have like 20 years of experience and you're trying to get that resume cut down to 1 or 2 pages, everything is not going to make it. So that's kind of why I said you have that relevant experience at the top and your education, your technical skills and all those different things. But then at the bottom, I may have some of those other experiences or personal experiences. Now I have a lot of volunteer work and leadership and things of that nature. So my resume is going to align with the position. And I think that's the most important thing. If I'm looking at a resume, we kind of talked about this, and someone's checking off all the boxes and then boom, they have a 3-year gap. Yeah, be prepared to speak to that in a conversation if I know it's going to be important to the hiring team, or they may want some more insight. But kind of prepare a professional rebuttal to that. If you feel you have to share that information about your background, your experience, or personal experience. So I'm kind of on the fence about that. I think the resume should be curated to the job, and you should highlight and use that real estate for things that really matter and going to make you the most competitive candidate. But if you have a significant gap, yeah, be prepared to speak to it, but really kind of format that resume to where it highlights those skills and experiences you have that align with the job in the best way.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. So when I'm reviewing resumes, I wouldn't look at a gap as a deal breaker at all. I think you and I both have a way of looking for the right skills and experiences that align to a role, but then still having a conversation with that candidate to make sure that we're covering all of our bases so we can fight for that candidate with the hiring manager, make sure that we're advocating for them in the right way. So that's where I think being honest about the gap, if you're asked by a recruiter, don't feel like it's a deal breaker. It's more like we're trying to figure out all of the questions a hiring manager might ask us when we're sending them a resume. So that way we know how best to kind of frame you as a candidate to them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think too, there's some accountability on us as hiring professionals and business areas and hiring managers. I know for us, we're on the front lines per se, right, with candidates. And it's important for us to report back that, hey, there's some talent out there, and that talent sometimes has diverse backgrounds, experiences, things that may not align with what you have in your mind is the perfect background experience. Hey, take a look at this candidate, even though they do have this career gap. Let's hold on to the things that are great, and let's hold on to the things that are actually going to be tangible and valuable to be a great part of your team. And let's start thinking a little bit differently about career gaps that may not potentially even matter. So I think as for us, we need to continue to push the narrative and push a diversity of thought and a different way to think.
Yeah, I think that's good. And thinking a little bit more about if you are the candidate trying to re-enter into the workforce, some other things that might be good to think about. I think networking is huge. So trying to make sure you're leveraging all the people in your network and letting them know you're ready to get back out there in the workforce. Ask your people for referrals. Ask them to help look at your resume, do some mock interviewing, see what kind of skills you might need to brush up on. Because there's a lot of free educational resources out there on the internet, and we see them a lot on resumes too as people are kind of progressing through their career paths. Technologies are always changing, so making sure that you're up on the latest technology in whatever way is really good too, and you can highlight that on your resume. What do you think about those tips?
Yeah, I think networking is good and an easy way to network, and something that you can do rather easily is informational interviews. So it's not just a matter of getting out there and speaking with recruiters and hiring managers on how I can best present myself, what's best on my resume. Talk with some industry professionals, maybe get a quick, maybe 3 or 4 minute conversation, three to four question like conversation down, some questions that you want to ask. High level, hey, I've been out of the game for some time. I was, let's say a software developer 5 years ago. I was out for family, or I was out for military or something of that nature, what have you, to get back into the game and kind of see where the industry is now, or to get in tune with some of the organizations that you're excited to work for, or industries. Do some informational interviews with some folks and take some notes and kind of start networking that way, versus like, hey, I need a job. Well, you'll get more feedback and it'll be a more fruitful experience doing it from that perspective, and it'll give you some development as well. And then you'll be able to take that information, then go research some of those skill websites. Like you said, you'll kind of know where to pivot and where to go and where to spend your energy, because you need a job, right? So you don't have a lot of time. So informational interviews, and then kind of analyze where those skill gaps are.
Yeah, I think that's good to point out, not to just be spamming everyone looking for a referral to get a job, really using that intentionally. And then I think too, as we think about reentering the workforce, just knowing and being honest with yourself, what you're competitive for, doing some self-reflection is probably pretty good too. Any other kind of final thoughts about that reentering the workforce, Alaina?
Yeah, so I haven't actually had to re-enter after a gap, but I have done transitions from different industries, right? But so what I would say is, if you're re-entering the workforce for any reason, is just really do your research, in a sense that do some self-reflection, like you're doing those informational interviews, you're researching the industry, you're talking to other hiring professionals and people. Take that information and really do some self-reflection on where you're at, because we're in, as far as technology, we're continuously evolving. So something that you felt was a great skill to have 2 years ago may not have the same weight that it has today, or even 5 years ago, or even a year ago has the same weight that it has today sometimes. So make sure that you align yourself with the right opportunity and at the right level. Because sometimes, you left as a director and you're like, I'm going to come in as a director because I'm a leader. And that's great to say that you have some of those great leadership qualities, but sometimes really your skill set as an individual contributor and kind of building yourself back up, versus trying to get into something where it's not the best fit as it was when you were originally in the role. And I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah, no, I think that makes total sense, because things change really quickly. We've seen that over the past year with COVID too. A lot of different jobs have changed and evolved. And so being able to really be honest with what your skill sets are and where they would align in the workforce today is key, I think.
Well, thank you for the conversation today, Christy. I truly enjoyed it, and think this will be some valuable information for those that are trying to get back in the workforce. The main thing I think today is just to have a plan and to stay consistent, and you can do it. Thank you for joining us at Talent Table, season 2, episode 1 of season 2. We will be back next week. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.